Wow, something big happened in Russian Tuapse port. Just look at this hole in the ground, or it's better to say in the beach of Tuapse itself. Wow. But not just the beach suffered, as it is visible over here, the part of the oil infrastructure also was damaged. The area is geolocated, confirmed, and later on there was the fire spotted. But definitely one of the missiles, and it was Flamingo missile, I guess, created the huge hole in the ground. You may compare it with the average human's height out there, so 2 meters, probably something like that, deep. Russians already secured the perimeter. They're working to collect the missile debris. As locals report, it was not a single kaboom, but at least 2 were there. One hit oil facility. What kind of? Well, I'm still waiting for that information. Before it was said about the drone boats attacks from the sea, but later on missiles were confirmed. Well, maybe it was the combination attack, drone boats and missiles. Well, if it is a Flamingo, and I guess it was a Flamingo, still it means that that missile has some of the flaws with navigation and precision. It reminds the first usage of Flamingo where missile also missed. Well, one of the missiles hit the target, its Armyansk FSB facility, and one created this some sort of the hole right at the shore, hitting this border and mainly water part of it. And the longer missile flies, the less precision it has, and judging on the images from Tuapse port, missile really missed it quite far away, because the port infrastructure, well, it's over there, yeah, quite far. Why did this deviation happen? It's hard to tell. Missile should be equipped with inertial reference system together with GPS, and even if GPS is jammed, IRS inertial reference system will continue to guide missile properly towards the target. Again, it tells that this missile is kind of wet and Ukraine still requires lots of the time to master its usage. And guys, this hole in the ground, it's not the Russian air defense missile. The principle of the air defense munition is just to release the shrapnel very close to the airplane or to air target to penetrate it. Also, for sure, it will not create this huge hole in the ground. Oh yeah, it was a combined attack on Tuapse, and this facility is gone. For sure it was the drone boat in combination with Flamingo. So the initial information was after all correct, and some of the eyewitnesses confirmed that there was the drone. Nice. It looks like Ukrainian drone went by at least 800 kilometers bypassing Crimea and all of the possible Russian surveillance. That's why it's important for Ukraine to control the gas towers, because with the help of those, Russia may put some of the radars on top and they may spot the Ukrainian drone operation. Also, Russia is pretty much unable to use their Navy fleet in the Black Sea. Well, at least as they used to do it before, because they could be an easy prey for the same drones, so they stay mainly in Sevastopol and Feodosia, leaving the free way for Ukrainian drones to reach Tuapse. So Ukraine is really focused on the Russian Tuapse port. It is already the third big kaboom of that one. And why Tuapse is so important? Because it is one of the biggest Russian oil ports in the Black Sea. It is used for the Russian shadow tanker fleet. And something tells me that if those attacks continue, Russia may lose the great part of the oil money. About Flamingo, there was an article published recently on Independent. They say that Ukrainian-made cruise missile Flamingo outperforms the United States Tomahawk in several key aspects. Yes, in a range and if we speak about the payload, but still it is pretty much visible for the Russian air defense radars, and also it is in lack of precision. This piece of engineering is very, very bad. And so far, Ukraine is unable to use it successfully. We're not speaking about 3,000 kilometers. Tuapse is not that far away from Ukraine. But Tomahawks, they're capable, they're time-proven, they're very nimble compared to Flamingo. They're 8 times less visible for radars, any sort of the radars. And for this reason, Ukraine actually was interested in obtaining those missiles. Because nowadays, usage of Flamingo is more like experiment. We are not speaking about fully capable cruise missile. Even Neptune is more profitable, and with Neptune, Ukraine is actually very precise. For example, the day before yesterday, Ukraine hit the Russian power plant somewhere in Belgorod Oblast, That strike was definitely successful. The building was severely damaged, and Russia will not restore it for at least several months, maybe till the end of the winter time. But I agree that Flamingo is pretty much good for its price, and Ukraine may experiment for now with it. And by the way, in two of the occasions, this missile was after all successful, so it hit the target. It's not like completely bad missile, but yes, it's far to be perfect, and it's very vulnerable. We'll see how Ukraine may deal with those issues, which are out there in this missile. This is Novokubeshevsk. Also, some of the kabooms were spotted yesterday. Well, I'm still trying to find some of the video evidence from that one. So far, I have just a single video that shows not the kaboom itself, but some of the audio, so probably a refinery was hit after all. And we have the confirmation from the Donetsk Oblast. Two of those buildings were used for Russia to store Shahid drones. Well, those are being kaputted. This strike happened around 2 days ago. Ukraine used FP2 drones for this mission. The strike was really precise. FP2 drones are very capable. And this is Gvardiiska. As you may see, they still have lots of the oil or fuel tanks. Well, actually, this is the Russian base. And I also see that this drone has the issues with control, because if it is on a high speed flying, there some of the Dutch roll start to happen, yeah? So maybe Ukraine should work on this design. Nevertheless, they hit some building there. Gvardiiska is just in the central part of Crimea, not far away from Simferopol itself. Well, Russia also continued to strike Ukrainian power plants. For example, this one was working on biogas or something like that, kind of the unique power plant. Yeah, it was working on biomass. It was the only one station like that in Ukraine, and it was, I guess, even destroyed by Russians. They launched even missiles to hit this facility. Unfortunately for Ukraine, blackouts will continue to happen this winter. Well, it's not gonna be easy for Ukrainian civilians, and many more will leave the country because, staying without electricity for 8-12 hours at least per day, it is close to impossible. And by the way, not just without electricity, but also without the heat, because those are thermal power plants, so they produce electricity and heat. And this was not the biggest one, so Russia hits everything. Alright, and here we have the video of the Russian cruise missile interception. It was intercepted by Ukrainian drone. So Ukraine is producing those interceptors. They fly at a very high speed and capable to chase even Russian cruise missiles. This is crazy. So you see, it is flying and hit. This time it's Ha-101. Awesome. The last night, Russians also tried to attack Star Konstantinov base, so there were two of the big kabooms outside the territory, so hopefully you can see it. Yeah, one big hole is over here, and the other one is over here. There are some of the airport facilities, but those were not hit, and the Russian military bloggers already confirmed the failed attack. So Russian weaponry, it has the range, but it has no precision. The same issue as for Flamingo missile, but Russian weapons should be state-of-art, as they say. However, with this precision to hit this some sort of the hangar is absolutely unreal. And also it shows that Ukrainian air defense is after all incapable to shut down every Russian cruise missile, or as it was used here, hypersonic Kinjal. Well, luckily, speaking about Ukrainian airplanes, everything is fine with them. Alright, this map looks strange, but that is how they depict the Russian regions, some sort of the map, yeah? Plus they put occupied territories and everything which is colored in amber. It means that there will be Russian mobilization. Russian reservists will be called to protect some sort of the energy facilities. I don't know how they may protect those, with the rifles or what, because Russia just needs the air defense, which they concentrated around Moscow. So just release those to protect your facilities and do not protect Putin's palace, Russians. Why do you need that guy? But no, Moscow is crucial, it's very important. I don't think that it's actually mobilizing Russian reservists to protect those very important facilities. I guess it is mobilization into the Russian army. Once they sign the contract with the Russian army, there is no way out, and they could be told, okay, we don't need you to protect specific facilities, now we need you to go and die in Ukraine. They will do so, there is no way out. But those mobilized Russian army men will absolutely not help Russia with sanctions. For example, today we have the news that Iraqi companies refused to cooperate with the Russian Lukoil that was working with Iraq. Also, the biggest Swiss energy company cancelled multi-billion contract with Lukoil, so sanctions really matter. But those were just introduced, and I hope for Russia it will be very hard to avoid sanctions in the long term. But about that I have some of the doubts, because after Orban's visit, after all, United States of America negotiated some sort of the immunity for Hungary against those sanctions, which means that some other parts also may consider their personal immunity. Well, those are the probabilities. If sanctions are not that strong, if you have those exemptions, it means that those are not necessary to comply with. Basically, it's all based on reputation of the United States of America and the strong dollar. Well, we'll see how it goes. Ukraine, after all, applies its own sanctions. Kremlin spokesman Peskov today mentioned that Russia is ready to go into the diplomatic solution of the war in Ukraine and willing to stop military actions, but only after the goals of the special so the same stuff. Again and again, Russia plays the same old song, and there is no way out to change their position, unfortunately. So Russia may only physically be stopped in Ukraine, and that requires enormous military support. Ukraine doesn't have it right now, that's why Russia is advancing little by little. Alright, this is something new.
Комбат позывной Лотов.
So his deputy battalion commander, call sign Claire, dig him down into the pit because he refused to go on the military task, which means some sort of the assault mission. This Russian guy said that it was some sort of the suicide mission, and for him to have the sun boss for his head is better variant. Well, interesting. It's the first time I see this stuff. Well, he was found and digged out by other Russians. The Wall Street Journal published the information about the investigation of the Nord Stream kaboom. They say that Zaluzhny could be involved in this operation, in the planning of it. They referred to some of the German officials involved in investigation. Well, as for me, Ukrainian side alone couldn't really plan this very sophisticated operation. A single small group on a yacht did this. Well, I think that there is something bigger involved into it. By the way, Russians also do not believe that it was just Ukraine. Well, they say that they fight in Ukraine against all of the NATO, so we shouldn't trust Russia. But here, well, there is the variant that Ukraine could plan it alone. We'll see. We'll see the official investigation result. For now, this kind of the information was published. Alright, just in my last video I told about the drones over Belgium, and we have the information, a new one, that drones again were spotted over Belgium, over their nuclear power station. Wow, Belgium, you should be ready to shut those drones. And what you need to do is to approve the confiscation of the Russian assets to help Ukraine to fight against Russia. Because Russia will send more drones towards you, they want to influence your decision. If you say yes, no more of those cases, or if there are, please shut down those drones. Oh, so much money. There is a corruption scandal in Ukraine once again. This time, Anti-Corruption Bureau detained some of the guys involved in corruption schemes in Ukrainian energy sector. Just imagine how many drones you could buy for that sum. Also, NABU opened the case and started the investigation and search of the apartments of this guy, whose name is Timur Mindic, a business partner of who? Of President Zelensky, a co-worker of the Quartal 95 studio from the previous life of Ukrainian president. Miraculously, few hours before his apartment was searched by Anti-Corruption Bureau, Mindic left Ukraine. How was it possible? Who knows? Yes, guys, on this channel I'm telling you the things as they are, and if there are corruption schemes or big scandals in Ukraine, of course I'll tell about it, as it was also with the same Anti-Corruption Bureau few months ago. Then President Zelensky decided to block the independence of those very important institutions, and just after it he faced demonstrations in Ukraine and pretty much harsh critics from European officials. And he was forced basically to backtrack that decision, and now I understand why. Well, the good thing about the story that after all, Anti-Corruption Bureau is working as well as the independent prosecution, and they don't care if it is president's friend or not, but they will follow what they need to follow. And there were multiple of the schemes and stories connected to this Timur Midic, why it's done too late and the guy left the country, so it will be really hard to find him now. So this is not a good part of the story. Well, maybe they should ask Zelensky about possible locations of this one, or maybe Zelensky now has nothing to do with him. Well, at least he will say like that. And what I want to tell here that if there are some of the Russian assets confiscated and given to Ukraine, they should be tracked very, very precisely by our European partners. Yes, corruption is elsewhere, also in Europe. Just look at Hungary. But in Ukraine, it is a criminal corruption because it is happening by the time there is a full-scale war against Russia. But guys like Mindic, they don't care about Ukraine. For those thieves, Ukraine is just a country where they can steal, take the money and relax somewhere else, living their best life. Well, as for Zelensky, I cannot say the same. Really, guy is risking a lot. Well, I don't think that he's corrupt himself, but his circle, at least as it was before, is damn corrupt. And I think if they dig something on Yermak, who is still ahead of the president's office, I wouldn't be surprised that they will find something. And you know what I see? The paid publications now are out there in Ukrainian media, in Ukrainian Telegram channels. Not all of them. Normal people post that everything is good, that even Zelensky's friends are now under investigation. But no, official media say that everything is wrong, that National Anti-Corruption Bureau, there is some problem with that. Very funny how much they pay for media and for those Telegram channels. It is crazy. Yeah, the corruption there is very, very deep. Nevertheless, Ukraine is not just about those corrupt officials. Ukraine is about Ukrainian people and those fighters who continue to fight on the front lines. They are also touched a lot, like the most, I would say, with this corruption, and they want to change Ukraine. That's why then the war had started. There were so many volunteers, but now not so many because people see what is happening in the country, also with those corruption scandals. Well, guess it's a long story and probably requires separate video. Well, here I think it's all, but I want to film frontline update video today as well, so bear with me. And guys, thank you so much for your kind support on Patreon and also on membership of the channel. The links for my Patreon is in the video description just below, and for membership just press join. Without your support, my job wouldn't be possible. And if you don't have this opportunity to support me financially, just press like to this video and subscribe for the channel to boost this video in YouTube algorithms. Thank you so much for that as well. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.